they managed to compare simple marketing warfare with positioning of your company. Am I a market leader? Am I second or third in the market? Am I a challenger, for example?
Are you a fitness-loving foodie? Then Defy Snacks is for you. Defy offers real, high-quality chocolate you love, combined with functional ingredients, giving you as much as 26 grams of protein per bag, so you can be both a little bit bad and a little bit good at the same time. As a female-owned brand, Defy dedicates a portion of its profits to other women-owned businesses. Currently sold in the US, you can find us on defy.snacks.com and follow us on social at Defy Snacks.
Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Wallerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, the creative effectiveness ad tech platform. And this is a podcast about the future of data-driven marketing. Every week or so, I have the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing one of our industry's leaders. And today I am in Utrecht. I think I'm vaguely saying that right. And I am here because I'm sat in the kitchen of someone who I can't really pronounce his name. Filip. Is it Filip De Groeve?
Yeah, quite well. Yeah, well done.
Come on, give it to me.
Well done, Filip De Groeve, indeed.
I always try. Filip is a Marketing Director Benelux at Coloplast. So, Filip, for anyone who doesn't know who you are and what you do, can you give us a bit of background?
I'm Filip, born Belgium, living now in the Netherlands. I'm a pharmacist by training, but I fell in love quickly with marketing. And since I've always been working in marketing in mainly pharmaceutical companies, food supplements, infant nutrition, and now Coloplast medical devices.
And what was your I love marketing moment? Because that was quite the shift from the pharmacist to a marketing. What was that moment where you're like, I need to do that?
Yeah, it's after my studies pharmacist, I had 1 year business management that I followed in Brussels. And it was at that moment that I first came into contact with marketing. And what I liked about that part, what was the aha moment, was probably the moment that we had to start up a business. And we had to think about simply communication. How would we communicate our product and the thinking behind how would we position ourselves versus competitors. Right. I think that first thing that was like, oh, you have people thinking about it, right, how you would position yourself. You need to know if you have a pharmacist in Belgium, for example, it's not allowed to make advertising for your pharmacy. There's some professions like lawyers or pharmacists or doctors, they cannot do advertising for themselves. So everybody's the same, let's say. So the whole aspect of marketing doesn't appear for doctors and pharmacists. And that was for me then
sounds like quite
a new world opening.
Sounds like quite an easy exercise then. If you can't do it, you're like,
yeah, it's an easy exercise. You don't have to do the positioning exercise then. Yeah, indeed. Yeah,
I had a realization that I could do stuff on Facebook all day. I was like, oh, I could actually get paid for that. I was 17 years ago. I was just like, that's really, is that a job? You can just mess around and come up with ideas for Facebook. I thought it was brilliant. So, pharmacist by training, 1 year business management. Had your eureka moment when you realized you could combine your knowledge with your creativity? But are you a reader of marketing books? Do you have a book you can recommend?
Yeah, I have tons of book upstairs. If you want, I can show it to you. Yes, but yes, and I also recommend my team to read quite often marketing or management books. The book that I would propose to everyone that I meet is in fact something that I recommended quite often in my early careers, and that was also recommended to me by one of my mentors, let's say, in my early careers, and that's Marketing Warfare. And Marketing Warfare is a very, very old book. You can just today download it for free because it's such an old book.
Right.
From Al Ries and Jack Trout. And those two guys, they managed to compare simple marketing warfare with let's say, positioning of your company. And that was such an eye-opener for me that you can say, am I a market leader? Am I second or third in the market? Am I a challenger, for example, it forces you to think, where are you in the market? Are you the market leader? And do you then have a defensive strategy? Are you the second and third in the market? Do you have an aggressive strategy? Are you only a small player? Do you, for example, do some guerrilla marketing? And are you a mediocre player, bigger than the small ones, but let's say fifth in the market? Do you have then a strategy to attack in the flanks? And the whole comparison between where are you in the market and what's your strategy to gain market share, that's a very nice book to read. And the fact that the book is already so old also shows that the example that the book has are still valid today.
So someone's going to like this idea but not get round to reading it. So you've talked about know where you are in the market and then using that knowledge of that position to come up with strategies and tactics to gain market share. Like, can you remember some of the examples, or how have you used that intelligence? Help me kind of flick through a few pages here. What else is in that?
Yeah. So imagine that you are, for example, the market leader in your market, and you need to have a defensive strategy. And sometimes many people don't understand that if they work for the market leaders, that the defensive strategy means, for example, that you're not obliged to, for example, invest in innovations. You have the luxury to look from your top of the pyramid, I would say, and you can see which company is innovating. And at that moment, you as a market leader can decide, I'll copy or I buy, because that's the position that you have in the market. That's not something that you can do if you're a smaller player. That's not something that you can do if you're the third or the fourth in the market. Then you need to gain market share, for example, through innovation and to come up with it yourself. But if you're the market leader, for example, you have that luxury. And I often see very often people in market leading companies that are a little bit frustrated because they have good ideas and they have great new ideas, but perhaps those ideas are not needed to defend your market share or even to gain market share.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's classic Facebook, isn't it? Someone said to me that Facebook aren't a particularly innovative business. They're just really good at acquiring.
Yeah. But that's the position that they have in the market. They don't have to do that. It would be for them a little bit too big a risk to say, let's innovate and create 10 new platforms with 10 new ideas. No, it's for them better to watch out of the 10 which is working and then acquire them.
It does make me a little sad though. You know, you see companies that I use and adore, things like Calendly. You know, the link that I sent over. It's just such a great time. And then you see Google come up with a copycat, and you think, some poor founder and his exec team have been working all night, all weekend, and then someone like Google goes, "Should we copy them?" Okay, yeah, get it done.
Yeah, but that's what happens, of course.
That is business, of course.
Yeah, that's business.
You know, but
it makes the people also understand why you do something.
What do you mean?
For example, if you work for a market leading company, sometimes you hear marketeers or people in product development being frustrated that there's not enough money for innovation or for trying new things. But as a market leader, perhaps you don't have to do that.
Indeed. Well, look, you've got me thinking about that. We've kind of gone slightly off topic, but that's fine. And marketing warfare, you can get it on Amazon. Just noticed. So what's your best bit of data-driven marketing advice? What is that one line, that kind of silver bullet bit of advice that you find yourself sharing most often with your team?
Go into the data and find the emotion. If you have a lot of data, and it's also links with what we will later discuss, of course, but you need to collect the data to be able to create content afterwards that has a certain emotion that will then again drive data. It's difficult to explain.
It's podcasts are kind of explaining mediums, so the stage is yours.
No, imagine that you have a database of, let's say, 10,000 people, and you have names and you have records and etc. If you don't have any fields in that data that they also say something about, in our case, a disease or the problem or the issue that the person is having, then you cannot really do a lot of new content creation with the data that you have. What we, for example, at Coloplast do pretty well is we have the data, but we also have a call center. And the call center is a tremendous good place to enrich the data with emotions. Then it's up to the marketeers, of course, to digest all the information that is in, but with the tools that you have today, that's pretty easy. And then you can find the perfect, let's say, emotion or insight that you need for your new launch, for your new campaign. And then you can immediately even contact those people and do some new marketing materials with it. But first of all, try to enrich your data with qualitative data, let's say. That's probably how we call it, but call centers are the perfect source for this information, and find the emotion that the people are showing. Is it a happy emotion? Is it frustration? Is it a problem that they always have? Is it, I don't know what? All the things pop up in your call center.
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with MadFest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. So I'm quite proud to say this, although it nearly killed me. Well, a book will be published that I've written in September that looks at data, creativity, and advertising. And that was one of my biggest learnings. I went into the book going, right, this book's about data and creativity. You know, let's let AI do this. Here's the black and white data. But what came back from all the experts I interviewed was largely that point. That actually you need to find you need to find the emotion. It's the humor. Yeah. It's the qual in parallel with the quant that works. Yeah. If you just look at the world from a quant perspective, which is very much a platform point of view, you know, you've got if you only looked at Google Analytics, then you'd basically be, you know, looking at your audience with, like, you know, smudged glasses, right? You know what I mean? It's not the whole thing, and so it's really reassuring to hear that from your perspective as well. But let's kind of go a bit deeper. So your shiny new object is finding the story,
yes,
which I guess is similar to finding the emotion. But kind of give me a mini masterclass on that, right? So you talked about the call center. You've got human beings saying real things. Presumably that can get transcribed and then whacked into whatever safe AI to reduce out and spot things that aren't obvious to see. It's easy to say find the story, but how do you actually do it?
Yes. Let's move into something very practical. In general, companies, when they have new launches or new products, they know that many years upfront, at least 2 years upfront, you know, we will have that innovation and it will do this. And very often it will be a very technical person and a very medical oriented person that will tell you how this new product will decrease infections or something else with a certain percentage. So it's very dry information that you're getting. What you then can do as a marketeer is go to your database and say, for who in my database will this be of interest? You can then try to enrich these people's data and see how active they are. Do they react on, for example, a survey? And in that survey, you can easily ask questions like, how do you perceive now sleeping? How do you feel after a day of not sleeping? What do you worry about during the day if you didn't sleep, for example, and etc. So you can specifically on the product that you have, ask questions that will drive you towards people that have a tremendous, interesting story. Then you don't have that story yet, because if you do that survey and you find those interesting people, then you still need to invite them in focus groups, on events, on, for example, congresses, if you organize congresses for, in our case, patients or consumers. But the easiest way to get those stories out of those people is on nice events. For example, we at Coloplast, we organize also Day at the Beach. And the weather is now really nice. It would be lovely to invite 40 patients of you at the beach. Invite them for a coffee, a cake, and perhaps also some activities on the beach. At that moment, you will discover that people are so open to talk amongst them, because they will quickly see, oh, we have the same problem, we have the same issue, and they will easily share all kinds of wonderful stories with you. And then those stories become your new content for your new launch product. But then, of course, what you can do is link that story with quant data. For example, person X can't sleep at night, and 70% of the patients have the same problem. What about you? We have the solution. And you have then a full story at the launch ready, not only from that one person, but because you send it a survey to everybody in your database that is of interest, all those people will immediately be contacted with that story. So you immediately not only did you create, but you also prepared your database for that story.
I've just got a really complicated image in my head, right, of a group of people who all have the same condition.
Yes,
they've been invited to the beach.
That's of course in our business the case. Yes,
of course. So there's a group of people who So this is needlessly practical. I just need to get. So you send an email to these people. You suffer from ABC. Would you like to hang out with 40 other people who also suffer from ABC on the beach?
They don't know that necessarily from each other.
So what's the premise? Like, how do you get these people to the beach? Like, how does that? What's the hook? Yes,
indeed. Of course, you will see. We offer you a community of people with the same problem. People probably also from the same age group. People with the same issues, but not with the same, let's say, problem on the emotional level. It's not because you can't sleep. That's, for example, your marriage is also a disaster. And so sleeping disorders, sleeping problems, they lead to 20, 30 other problems. But people will talk and will see, oh, it's because you can't sleep, and it's because you think, and for example.
So you get people to meet collectively around a topic, and you pay for all the tickets. They all go at the beach and they're having a great time. So then are you like stood there with a microphone or a clipboard? Like how do you capture those stories?
I know. Then you invite your team, and you have your marketing team. We also invite our call center, and then we just join them in the activities, in the things, in the drinking, in the eating, in the pleasant, and then people start talking, and then we note down who has an interesting story.
Mate, I would love to come to one of these. I've never heard of anything like that. That sounds absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Sorry, but I just had a really odd image of people playing beach volley and you with a clipboard writing everything down that they say, which isn't what happened. So no, I get that.
No. It's all very natural. The people don't have the feeling that we are digging into their lives, but sometimes
but you are.
Yeah, but sometimes, for example, you're looking for a testimonial. I'm saying for somebody with a different religion that you normally have. And then of this event, if you see then one person or two persons with, for example, a different religion, then you say, oh, that's interesting. I will certainly go listen to their story and see if they have an interesting story and whether you can do something with it. So, of course, your mind is set on specific people. For example, a wheelchair patient or perhaps a couple with the same condition. Or you always have coincidences that happen. And then you find the stories. And finding that story out from your data, that's so essential. And if you do it with surveys to all the people that are of interest into you, then of course only at that event 5% is perhaps present, but you prepared all the others with questions on the launch. So you can also individually say to those people, you in the survey answered this. We have now the solution.
And at the start of this interview, you put a magazine down on the table and you said, "That's my shiny new object."
Yes.
So, obviously, this is an audio-only podcast.
Yes.
And there's a magazine on the table. Why is that your shiny new object?
Because if you... we are a pretty big organization, so we do a lot of work with data, and we have, let's say, 100,000 active consents names in the database that we work with, and that over different divisions and etc. But the most important thing is then also to collect those stories, and these magazines are full of only the stories that we collected. And making these magazines makes it then again interesting for nurses, for other new patients, for patient organizations to also share this information. And of course, there are again name catchers, as we say it, as we call it, new requests. So if you want this magazine, if you want to have more information on this, please contact us, go to the website, and then the new consumers enter again your database because they really want to see more out of it. And they want to. So the magazine is not only the collection of all these stories, it's again a name catcher for the new people in your database.
By name catcher, you mean data capture?
Data capture, yeah.
Right, sorry.
We say name catcher.
Name catcher sounds a bit more romantic than
data capture. Yeah, for us, we have different name catchers as services, magazines or other brochures that we have. And the most important data catcher that we have is that we have a website with all our products, and every product can be tested for free by our patients. So every patient or consumer that wants to test our products can go to the website, give his data, and in exchange for the data, they get the product for free.
So, Philip, unfortunately, we have to leave it there. That went somewhere I was not expecting. And thank you. If someone wants to get in touch with you and send you a message, what goes into a message that you will actually reply to?
LinkedIn is for me always the easiest way. And if it's interesting, then they'll get this Calendly invite. And then normally what I do...
Come on, what makes it interesting? What makes an interesting message?
The most interesting messages start, "I've heard you saying this." That's the most interesting. No, I read every message, in fact, on LinkedIn, but I don't reply. If it's, again, the so manyest person that wants to sell me something. Then very easy, I use my time in the car to have every day one call with somebody. So people, if it's a student that needs something, then
that's nice.
Then I say, yes, my Calendly is set, and between 8:30 and 9, I'm in my car and you can call. For me, that's a new source of inspiration and against my loneliness in the car. And sometimes sometimes it's a person that wants to sell me something, and sometimes it's even a student that wants to learn something.
Philip, thank you so much for your time.
So most of the times I reply with a simple Calendly invite, like you mentioned earlier also. Thanks for the time, Tom. It was nice inviting you over here in Utrecht.
Mate, it's been, there's no way I would ever have come here otherwise. So what a lovely experience. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi. Just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.